So my name is Martina Quinn and I'm the founder and the managing director of a company called Alice PR and Events. I called the company after my grandmother, Alice Cullen. And essentially what we do is provide clients with creative events, with media relations services and with online communication services that are aimed at connecting them with their target audiences. So with some clients, our services are very traditional PR services. It's things like organising press conferences, writing press releases, pitching to the media on behalf of clients. And then with others, we do lots of online marketing campaigns and social media work and quite a bit of event management work as well. We were established in July 2015, so we've been up and running for about 15 months now. And over that time, the company has grown quite quickly. There's a team of 6 of us now, and we have over 30 different client contracts amassed over that time. So it's been a really, really busy 15 months. So I grew up on a farm just outside Thurles in County Tipperary. I'm the middle child in a family of 3 girls, and I left Tipperary when I was 18. Like lots of other people, came to Dublin to go to university, and I've been in Dublin ever since then. I studied journalism in Dublin City University, and when I graduated I worked for a while as a freelance journalist, mostly with public affairs and sort of politically focused magazines. I was the editor of Public Affairs Ireland for a little while, and I worked in a political party, and then I moved into a sort of external communications role. I was communications manager with a national charity. From there then I moved into a PR agency in the private sector, and I worked with that agency for 8 years. I rose up through the ranks from account manager level up to executive director level, and I was there until last summer when I left to set up my own company. I had been in my last job for 8 years, and as I said, I had risen from account manager level, going up through the ranks to a situation where I was effectively second in command to the owner of the company. I had had a great time, I had learnt loads. I've always been really lucky in that I've always liked the jobs that I've had in the past, but I guess I had reached a stage in my career where I felt like I wanted to work for myself rather than for somebody else, and I had lots of ideas, and I suppose I'd learned enough about how a company runs to have lots of ideas myself about what I'd like to do and what I'd like to try out, and I ended up leaving my last job quite impulsively. I didn't have any sort of grand plan to set up a company, but initially I thought that I would do some freelance and consultancy work, and that's what I did for the first few months. And very luckily I was busy enough, quickly enough, to be able to take on some staff and to move from being a freelancer or from being a consultant into establishing a limited company. One of the things that I learned very quickly when I started working for myself is that people are much, much nicer than we sometimes think. I was really blown away by the amount of goodwill and positivity that I got when I went out on my own. People who I barely knew went out of their way to refer me for business to people that they knew, to recommend me or to give me referrals. And that was really, really beneficial. I spent a lot of time at the beginning meeting people for cups of coffee and for chats. And in some cases that led to contracts and to work straight away. In other cases that's just coming to fruition now, but it was definitely worthwhile. So I guess something that I had never realised really was how valuable my networks were. I wouldn't have said that I was a person who was naturally brilliant at networking or who had really extensive networks, but having worked in PR for almost 15 years, I guess I had built up a much stronger network of contacts than I knew. I also found online networking really, really useful at the beginning. Some of the biggest contracts that I've won over the past 15 months have come about almost completely through online networking. So to give you an example, there was a woman who I knew just professionally. I had never actually met her in real life, but the two of us were connected on LinkedIn. And she saw, when I was finishing up my last job, I had posted on LinkedIn and on Facebook and Twitter that I was leaving and heading out on my own. She saw that and she got in touch with me, and she works in PR herself. So she approached me to work on a project that she was too busy to take on herself, and she recommended me for it. And that project was actually in collaboration with a company that's based in London called the Honey Partnership. And they're a global communications company with a specific focus on bringing brands from China into European markets. They work across Australia, UAE, South Africa, the US. So a really exciting organisation to work with. And I collaborated with them on that specific project last year, but since then we've actually set up an ongoing relationship. And for any of their work in Ireland, they come to Alice PR and events now, and we look after campaigns for them here. So that's just a small example of something that happened in a really fortuitous way last year, purely through LinkedIn. And thankfully, things like that sort of happened to me a lot at the start, so I was definitely lucky, and I'm very, very appreciative of the people who went out of their way to recommend me for work. One of the things that I really wish I had done differently at the start, and I think this is probably common for a lot of small business owners and entrepreneurs, is I wish I had invested more time in the administrative side of things, and particularly things like finding a good accountant who was really responsive to my needs and who met my needs. So I like to do everything online, and I made the mistake of initially working with an accountant who was quite old school in their approach. They did everything in a very paper-based way. They were very focused on sort of, I suppose, more traditional businesses like shops and sort of the retail sector, I guess. And I pushed aside my concerns about that relationship because I was too busy with client work to sort of focus on those types of admin and management issues. So I let the relationship go on for about 6 months, when really I knew from the beginning that it wasn't going to work out on either side. And it took me quite some time to find an accountancy firm then that's very forward thinking in how they do things. They come to me with solutions. They have lots of online tools. You don't have to keep paper copies of all your receipts, for example. You just file them through an app and send them on to the accountant for processing. So that's really useful, but it definitely ended up costing me a lot of time because I didn't sort of, put research in at the start and find a firm that matched my needs at the beginning. In the same way, I suppose I have, like lots of business owners, tended to put things like HR policies and invoicing and just the general sort of admin tasks, even in terms of building up office infrastructure and all of that, they tend to be pushed down your to-do list all the time, because in the early days, certainly the priority is always on just finding clients and keeping clients happy and making sure that you're bringing in enough income to keep the company going. For potential entrepreneurs who are thinking about starting their own business, I think I would be very encouraging. I'd say go for it. Definitely, I never sort of, if you had asked me years ago would I have my own business or was I going to be an entrepreneur, I never had any big plan in that regard. So one thing I've learned is that you don't necessarily need a plan. If you're in the services industry like I am, you don't necessarily need lots of money either. I was very lucky in that I've had very few overheads since I set up. I don't manufacture goods, so I didn't have any manufacturing costs. I've been able to come to great arrangements with different people I've known around renting office space in a very cost-effective way. So I was able to start out with very little startup costs. And to get going quite quickly. I think it's been hugely rewarding. It's definitely hard work, but the enjoyment you get out of working for yourself and then ultimately employing other people and sort of generating money for the wider economy is huge. And I think it's something that I would have always regretted if I didn't do it. So I definitely advise other people to give it a shot.